Yes, so for our talk today, we want to invite you to a little journey. As Basti said, it's not 3 months, it's 6 months actually, when we launched our magazine. And we want to take you on a journey becoming the fastest growing fashion magazine in Germany. And we did this using agile methodologies. We did this using a bunch of technologies, and we want to share some experiences we had along the way, how we had to restructure the organization, how we dealt with problems on the way, becoming this. In the beginning, I want to share a little bit where we are today with our magazine, so I hope you can read it, but I'm also going to tell you. So as I said, our goal is to become the fastest growing fashion magazine in Germany, for women especially. And by now we already have over 1,000 articles live. That's a great job our editors do. We also have more than visits currently after 6 months already, more visits than our competitors like InStyle, Vogue and Cosmopolitan, the big magazines in Germany. Not only on desktop and on the web, but also in our apps, and also Google and on Apple think that we have a great app or great apps. That's why we got featured as well in the App Store and in the Play Store for several times. And we did this with a rather small team. In the beginning, just 3 editors and 3 developers. By now, we grew to over 10 editors and also some more developers and designers. But we did all this with a very small team. And how we did it, we want a little knowledge sharing today. But first of all, let me introduce ourselves a little bit, starting with Dom.
Yeah, so hi, welcome. I'm really glad you're all here. I hope you all liked the conference so far. I'm Dom. I'm a software engineer at Stylight for about 3 years now. I was responsible for the technical side of the newly launched magazine. I brought Anselm because I'm not very good with all this organization stuff, so he's going to do the boring part of my presentation, and I'm going to tell you about the technical stuff later on. Sorry.
Yes. Yes, also very short introduction from my side. So I'm a co-founder of Stylight. I also have a more technical background. That's why in this project I was a little advisor in technical things. But I'm not doing programming that much anymore. So my responsibility shifted to organizational stuff, HR. And that's why I joined Dom for this little part in our presentation. Just about Stylight and some numbers. Maybe you heard the introduction by me or Basti in the morning. So we are basically the best place to discover and shop fashion on the internet. We are market leader for this in Germany, but we also are in 13 other countries. We by now have over 170 employees. Most of them are here in Germany, but we also have small offices in New York and in London. And yeah, we have a great international team, and that makes a lot of fun to work here. And that's about the numbers. But what we actually want to talk about today is a totally new chapter in Stylight's history. So we are about 7 years old. We started basically with the fashion search engine, and it's still our core business, the shopping part of Stylight. And we, about half a year ago, thought about a totally new chapter, as I said, in Stylight history, and we wanted to become also a magazine, a fashion magazine. You can ask the valid question why we're doing this. So we have a profitable core business that's running in several countries, and it's really working out great for us. But why are we tackling this and go out of our comfort zone and do a fashion magazine? We started 4 guys, so fashion we still can't sell that we are the fashion part of Stylight, so we have people for that that cover the fashion part. But we thought that adding an inspirational part to the fashion search engine adds tremendous value to all our users, and especially for women, this fashion magazine is a great thing. So what we do actually is combine inspiration and shopping, so you can get inspired by great editorial content and then directly buy it. And this combination of content and commerce is basically yeah, none of our competitors is really good at it. We're very good at the shopping part, and now we entered the magazine part or the editorial part as well. How did we do it? So you heard in the last talk by Spotify, there's one way to do it. Just write specs over 2 years and then execute it over the next 3 years, and then see that everything is a big mess and you're totally developed a product nobody wants. So we did it in an agile way, and that's what we wanted to talk about it a little bit. So we basically had a big goal, and we still have a big goal, to become the fastest growing fashion magazine in Germany, especially for women. Our starting position was basically ground zero, so we had no clue of editorial, we had no clue of publishing something online, and that was our starting point. We started with the whole thing basically right before Christmas last year, and that's why we decided that our approach should be, we form a great team with everything we need, and then do it in an agile way, which means basically getting user feedback as fast as possible. In our case, as fast as possible was basically 2 weeks. So from the beginning of the project, after 2 weeks, the first articles were online, and Dom is going to show you a little bit how we did it technically. And from this point on, we got user feedback and iterated a lot to include this user feedback. Set up a great team. In our case, we had the great developers, which we don't had what was the editorial team. That's why we hired basically the best editor we found, which is the former editor of Cosmopolitan, or the editor-in-chief of Cosmopolitan, and Kerstin is now the editor-in-chief of Stylight, and she's responsible for the great content we have on our page. What we had to adapt to be agile as we wanted it to be and get on speed, we had to adapt the organization a little bit. So our organization 1 year ago was basically a classic organization. We had an IT department, a product department, a marketing department, and since we grew a lot in the last year, we lost speed in internal communications. Finding goals was very hard, because when you're only working for another department, then finding or defining your own goals gets very hard. That's why we thought about changing something in the organization to get on speed. It's basically, we also invested some research. We thought a lot, or we talked a lot to Spotify, to Wooga, to the companies we admire, and yeah, we basically came up also with a cross-functional structure, which I call here from silos to the Avengers. And everything we did here is basically driven by 3 things we think drives people. And this is not by me, so this is by Dan Pink. It's basically 3 things that we think drives people. It's autonomy, purpose, and mastery. And all these 3 things weren't quite covered in our organizational structure we had back then. That's why we thought building cross-functional teams, and in our case, cross-functional teams is not only throwing developers together with designers, that's what's normally cross-functional teams, but also pulling in there sales guys, marketeers, everything you need. And if you now go through the teams here of Stylight, you will see teams with salespeople directly sitting next to the developers they need, or content marketers directly beneath designers and developers. And this brought us a great gain in speed. We had also the purpose, or the advantage, that finding goals for each team was much easier. So in a normal IT department, it's very hard to find goals. You're only working for other departments. Your goal is basically developing their tickets, but there's not really a customer you're working for. And in those autonomous teams, you have a direct customer, and it's a lot of fun to work for a business partner, for the direct customer, and you have a real purpose in your work. The autonomy is also given in cross-functional teams. What gets a little bit more difficult is the mastery. That's what Spotify also tries to tackle with chapters. So as soon as you split up your IT departments, of course, people are not sitting together in the same discipline. So talking about technical things, keeping up the technical excellence gets more difficult. But then you have to try with guilds or with chapters or with meetings like this to keep up the mastery in your organization. this basically gave us the possibility to found like a mini startup for the magazine, but now we have mini startups in the company, and it was maybe the best change we did in Stylight over the last years, and gave us a lot of speed back. So whenever you have the chance to try it out in your company, I can only encourage you to try it out. You don't have to do it in the whole company, but try it out with one team. Put developers together with salespeople and designers, and try to found a mini startup. It's a whole lot of fun. Yeah, that was on the organizational part. I'm now going to hand over to Dom, and he will talk a little bit how we did it technically. Thank you.
Okay, so as I said before, I was one of the engineers responsible for the launch of the magazine, and I'm still working on this side. So a little bit of history first. It was about around Christmas time when we first heard about Kerstin joining us, and then we found out that we were going to launch a magazine soon, basically an area of the web where we actually don't have any experience. So we formed a little team, basically a startup within a startup, or a cross-functional team, or whatever you want to call it. We sat down in a room together and we thought, okay, so what are the things we need in order to have an MVP, or a minimum viable product, to have something out very soon? So we knew the editors were going to start within 2 weeks. So we had around 2 weeks to get a content management system running, so they could start working from the first day. So we started this approach with basically we want an MVP. So most people, MVP is not equal to a shitty product. So you want to have something out fast, but you still want a complete product. So what was very important for us, the most important thing about the project at first was so what do we actually need? We need 3 things. We need a CMS. So we need a way for the editors to get their content in, and this needs to be out very fast. So we have editors starting in 2 weeks. We need a CMS. Then the CMS can't just be like a web form with a submit button and save it to some database or something. There needs to be an editorial workflow that the editors are used to. So basically, the editors came from a print background where they have very, very good defined processes on how to get. I mean, the business has been around forever. They know how to publish content. So they are used to certain things, like certain nice things, like an editorial workflow, like a calendar. They have it's just like you have code reviews for developers. You have also the content needs to be reviewed. There needs to be spell checking and all that stuff. So that was the first very important thing. The second thing was that we did not want to launch although we were a sort of a startup within a startup, we did not want to launch a second product. So we were still part of Stylight. So the second important thing was it needs to seamlessly integrate with our existing product. And this actually goes both ways. So we want posts from the CMS inside our website. So basically, we knew that the homepage of Stylight would be a magazine soon. So there needs to be posts, there needs to be content. But on the other hand, we also want magazine posts to include stuff that you can already find on Stylight. For instance, we have many products, brands, we have looks, some community features. We want that in our posts as well. So this is the second part. So there needs to be some sort of, for this, there needs to be some sort of communication between the content management system and the website. So of course we decided on a common data format which is mostly used for APIs. It's JSON. So that was a very a requirement for the CMS. It needs to easily spit out JSON. And another thing, as we were only a very small team, so initially we were only 2 developers, and we had a working student, and we had some design help and stuff, but we were only a few developers, and we had very little ops power. So we wanted to have we did not want to focus on how do we get it live? We want to actually work on the product. We want to have the best user experience for the editorial team, and in the end for our own website. So it needs to be easily deployable. Okay, so for the CMS, as I said before, this was the most critical, most critical part of our of the whole project. So initially, of course, we thought we're all engineers. We're going to build it ourselves, of course, using the latest, most coolest technologies. It needs to be scalable, so we're going to have it on AWS. We're going to use Golang and all fancy JS frameworks that are around. But then we thought, okay, we don't have 6 months to write a CMS first and then let the editors work with it and then have something out. We needed something out within 2 weeks. There's no way, even on if you have drink 20 liters of Red Bull and take whole weekends off to just build a CMS within 2 weeks. So that we really initially we already said, okay, we're not going to build it ourselves. We're going to use existing software. We're going to use some open source software. We're going to maybe look at other commercial software. The important thing was it needs to be it needs to get the job done, but it also needs to be sort of customizable. So we're going to need a certain amount of fields and stuff within the API that are not very common. So it needs to be, to some degree, it needs to be customizable. And so we looked at all the frameworks around. We looked at Drupal, Joomla, all the things, and at the end we decided to use WordPress. I know it's not the sexiest choice of technology, but in this case it gets the job done. So it's the most commonly used CMS in the world. It has the best user experience for content publishers. It's probably, I mean, it gets lots of hate for security vulnerabilities and scalability, and it's PHP, so of course no one likes it. But the UI is just top notch, and it's really easy to get started. So why are we using WordPress? So it was already it was, like I said, an easy choice. It was the most commonly used CMS in the world. It has a really nice ecosystem. So there are tons of plugins for pretty much everything. There was also a really nice plugin we found in the beginning that basically allows you to create a JSON API from all your content. So it was just like, okay, we're gonna write this content. There's one click, and we have a JSON API. Of course, we needed to somehow customize it, but at least we had a really good starting point. Yeah, it is to some degree scalable. It is security was not really a concern for us because it's only our internal-facing application. So, all IPs are blacklisted except for the Office and the VPN. So basically, this is fine for us. And a really big part, what is really great about WordPress is the ability to customize it. So the ability to write plugins without touching the core. So you can still update it, and you can still really easily customize it. And I'm going to show you a few things. This is the first customization we did. So if you go to the Stylight website right now and check out the magazine, there are on the top, with pretty much every content platform, you have a sort of a featured post. You have, posts that are the most popular, and we wanted to give the editors the ability to easily set the featured posts. So we built this little plugin that basically allows you to use drag and drop to just set the post as featured. This is just a small example. This took maybe 2 days to write. So this is just an example on how easy it is to create plugins and customize your product. The second one was, like I said in the beginning, we knew we wanted to have things that are already on Stylight. We need them in the magazine posts as well. So we thought, okay, how do we get the products from Stylight? How do we get the products and the looks and all that stuff? How do we get it into the magazine posts? So we wrote a little WordPress plugin that was just uses our own API, just fetches some products, puts the product IDs and the look IDs inside the JSON, and then we, on our end, when we basically when we query the API and we see these IDs, we just go to our own database and just integrate it. Okay, so now that we have, first of all, we had this the CMS from, it took about 2 weeks. So from the first day, we decided to, okay, we're going to use WordPress to the first content published on in the CMS was only about 2 weeks. So just to show you how quickly, if you use already a proven product, how fast you can get things working. Okay, so now we have a CMS, but we need to somehow get the posts to our own website. So we need to display them. And we did not want to write templates in PHP. And so, like I said at the beginning, we just wanted to use basically use WordPress as a nice looking UI that gives us data at the end. So basically a nice layer on top of a database, right? So this is basically the whole architecture at first for our MVP. So it's basically WordPress running on. So we did not even host it ourselves. So we basically we use a service called WP Engine. They are basically experts on hosting WordPress blogs and WordPress sites, and we actually used the cheapest plan. So like the $200 shared plan we already had because we already published some sites on WP Engine. And at the later stage, we migrated to the enterprise plan. But for the beginning, it was enough to have this shared hosting and this shared, because WP Engine also offers things like, really nice things like a deployment process. So that's like another 2 weeks. You don't have to write tests. They have automated staging and development environments and all that stuff. So automated backups. Okay, so this was our MVP. We are already live at this point, but soon after we got the first traction, we got the first 100,000 views, we got the first 200 posts published. We already saw, okay, the response times of the WordPress API, it was like getting worse and worse every day. So at the end, we thought, okay, when we first saw the first 2 second server response time, we thought, okay, shit, we need to do something. So we put a caching layer in front of our website, just a basic Java in-memory cache. And then we saw, okay, when the cache runs out, you have the problem. The problem is doesn't go away. So you have like the graphs look like this, right? So basically, every time the cache runs out, you have to like cross your fingers that response time isn't too shitty. And you also have this stampeding cache problem where when the cache runs out for many people at the same time, it's just the worst. So we thought, okay, now the MVP is done. We need to scale it out. So we thought, okay, what can we add to this architecture that basically allows us to scale in the future? And then we looked at the upcoming features we wanted to have on the site. For instance, we wanted to have search. So basically, the WordPress API does not offer the abilities to search, which is a really critical part for us, of course. We also want even basic things like sorting by category, or like just adding fields to the API. There were so many hacks you had to do. So we thought, okay, we need to scale out, we need search, we need ranking, of course, at some point. What are we going to use? So we have some experience here at Stylight with Zoller. We use Zoller for our website, and you already saw in Jan's talk that it's a really common and really nice technology, and it's been working really great for us here at Stylight. But we wanted we use a pretty older version of Zoller, which does not have the good API yet, and we're not really happy with the direction 4.0 is going. So we thought, okay, what is the alternative? And there is, of course, there is Elasticsearch, and Elasticsearch out of the box offers you. Many people here in the room have used it, I'm sure. It offers you a nice API. It offers you a searchability based on Lucene. It offers you you can have a nice, really nice UI on top of it with Kibana, and you can even it's Java based, and you can get there are tons of ways to get data into the cluster. So we decided to try it out, and we decided to use it. So initially we also thought, okay, we had such a great experience outsourcing the hosting of the WordPress blog that we were just gonna use a service that offers Elasticsearch, right? So Elastic, the company behind Elasticsearch, they recently announced that they're offering their service as a service, so you can pay for it. We tried it out. The response time was just not really what we were looking for. So we thought, okay, this time doesn't work. It does not always work. We have to build it ourselves. So we looked at the tool. It's called CloudFormation. I don't know why, but it has been around forever, and I have never really read any success stories about it. It's not really on Hacker News or anything that much, but it's really a very, very amazing and cool tool. And we use it in conjunction with Docker, so we would have the development environments we use Docker for, we already also have in production. So basically we have just a standard free node Elasticsearch cluster running inside Docker. Basically, it's replicated on all development machines and all testing machines. They all look the same. And it's very easy with CloudFormation to just launch new stacks. And we just launched one in Frankfurt. At some point in the future, we're probably going to launch in the US. So it's just one click to launch in the US data center. So okay, now that we have Elasticsearch running, how do we get the data into our cluster? And there are two ways with Elasticsearch. You can either use a river, as they're called. Basically, it's a pull from the database at a certain interval, and just use that data. But we wanted a bit more flexibility on which fields are basically indexed, and when are they indexed, and when are they updated. So we decided on the second way to get data into Elasticsearch, which is the push. And we basically, it's super easy. So within WordPress, every time you click on update, edit, save, or whatever, we just hook into this action and basically update the post within Elasticsearch. So the data is also saved, of course, in the MySQL database on the WordPress side, but it's at the same time pushed via the HTTP API that Elasticsearch exposes inside Elasticsearch. And then you are able to search it, you're able to do everything with the data you want. Of course, I'm just going to put this here. It's scalable, of course. It's secure. It's you can actually also, with the same with WordPress, you can add plugins. Like there is a really cool AWS plugin which basically allows you to some sort of it's almost like service discovery on a AWS security group level. So basically, you add a new node, it gets discovered automatically. You have a bigger cluster. Okay. Sorry. So now that we have that in place, that was about like 2 months ago, and we already saw. Now it's really the product is getting stable. So we don't have an increase in load time anymore. It's really something that we can work with in the future. The next thing is, okay, then now that we have, at this point we already had like, let's say 1,000 posts published, right? And we had many, many views on our website. And we thought, okay, we need to give the editors or the publishers the ability to look at the data. So most of them came from a print background, and they don't have this luxury of the web. Right? So basically, you can get instant feedback after the first day. So back then, when they were working at the print media, they wrote their articles. 2 months later, they were published in some magazine. They didn't know if they could look at the sales data maybe, but that's it. But as we're really lucky on the web, we can basically track everything. So as it turns out, the editors don't really like Google Analytics. So we use Google Analytics for pretty much all our analytics needs, but it was just a bit, let's say, too technical. There was too much noise. They just needed like really the core. How many visits? How many shares? What did the people actually click on my content? Did they read through all of it? What was the bounce rate? How many seconds did they, or how many minutes did they stay on the website? So the next iteration, basically, so we had this MVP. We added, because we saw, okay, it's MVP is cool and all, but we need to scale it. Then we added Elasticsearch, and we added some other things. We really improved the product, so it was a stable, very stable product. And then we thought, okay, this is the next iteration is we need sort of analytics. So we basically wrote an analytics dashboard, or we're still in the progress. So we started like last week actually to write an analytics platform. This is based on Golang and some other cool technologies. This is where you can really go crazy on the technologies, because at this point you already have something out. So okay, now we have the MVP done. We can really focus on improving the experience for everyone. And another thing we added was, so the post data alone was not enough for us. We needed some sort of different data from different data providers as well, because a post gets shared on Facebook, a post gets pinned on Pinterest and tweeted and all that stuff. So we need to get this data somehow. So we built a sort of ETL system, also written also in Golang, that basically pulls all the data from all the different social APIs from Google Analytics and all that stuff, and then puts it right into the data that is already sitting in Elasticsearch. And at the end, we can use this data from the analytics, from DTL, we can use it on the website for ranking and displaying everything. So from a really very bare metal architecture we had at first, like we only had the WordPress and we had the website. That was really easy to develop, because you had a local WordPress running. The website was already running inside Docker, so that was also easy to set up for developers. But then, now you have all these moving parts. So what we did was we had such a really good experience with using Docker for the Stylight website development environment. We thought, okay, we're going to use this for this product as well, and basically think of all the moving parts as services. So basically, we have the WordPress, which is basically our content service. We have the analytics, all these services, and Elasticsearch also as a service, and running alongside in different containers. So with a single command, that was basically our requirement. With a single command, every developer should be able to run our whole stack in their own environment. So basically, these are just some of the technologies we use. Here's Golang, MySQL, all that stuff. And not every developer is an expert in every field. So someone might not know, okay, how do I even start a Java application? So, but they don't really need to know these things if they're not really working on. As long as they can get the service running, which is super easy with Docker, they can already access this service, and they can already talk to the service and negotiate with the service. So that was really important for us, and it's been working out really well. We're looking at tools that help with the orchestration of the containers. So right now we're trying to use Docker Compose, which is kind of new. And so if anyone has any suggestions, just talk to me later and help me. Yeah. So, okay, that was basically how we managed to launch the magazine in such a short amount of time. I mean, if you really look at it, within 2 weeks we had a CMS running, within 2 weeks we had our first published content, and now it's only been 6 months and we are like already number 3 in Germany. So we also, along the way, not everything went as we planned, of course. So we had some learnings, and Anselm is going to start.
Thank you. So just a few learnings we had on the way. So as I said on the slide with the boat, so you can't steer a boat that isn't moving. So especially in a field where there's high uncertainty and you have no clue where you are, just get an MVP out and get instant user feedback, and not only focus groups and not only town hall testing or hallway testing, but get real user feedback soon. And that gave us yeah, a lot of speed back. The second thing is what we discovered is these cross-functional teams really rock. So just try it out in your company, sit together and build mini startups and try it out. It really gave us speed back. In the former organization, of course, there was the danger that salespeople are fighting against the IT department. They are selling stuff that they haven't built, and all the normal communication you have. So just try it out, and it's a lot of fun. And the last thing from my side is we call it sharpen your axis. So before you actually start to develop, we invest some time in deployment processes, in the continuous integration. In our case, it's building Docker containers, building the Jenkins environment, and so that later on you can really focus on creating value, and not every deployment takes an hour or two to get your stuff out. Just yeah, invest some time in the beginning and then concentrate on the on creating user value, and that's what we also learned in this project. So yeah, hand over to Dom again for some more learnings. Sorry.
Okay, so one big learning we had, and you're really gonna like this one. So there is this thing called bus factor. So if you have a really small team where you have, let's say, many specialists, and you really need to be careful that if for some reason one person of the team like gets hit by a bus, the other people in the room can still work. So you can achieve this by doing like pair programming and doing a stand-up every morning and doing code reviews and all that stuff. So in our case, no. Okay, that was the wrong one. The thing is not working anymore.
It's in the
okay.
back.
I don't know if you can see it, but that's me in the ambulance because I was hit by a police car on my way home. So it's not the bus factor for us, but the police car factor. Yeah, and basically that was a really pain because it was pain, obviously, but the huge thing was that there was no work that, because I was the only person working on Elasticsearch, we had no one else that could do the work, so it was basically a standstill for 1 week. I could still like work from home, but it's not the same. Yeah. Then the next thing is if you decide to go with a different service provider for parts of your like really important parts of your infrastructure, that causes many dependencies. So, for instance, when the CMS is only available, like WordPress is only available from within the office or VPN, right? Because it only needs to be accessible for the editors. But in the beginning, we also wanted to integrate it with the Google Calendar. So we kind of thought, okay, we need to somehow get this public so that the calendar can access our CMS. So we need to blacklist and whitelist a certain IP range. So we had to write, every time we wanted to blacklist or whitelist anything, we had to write to WP Engine. So the WP Engine, and they're based in Canada, so there was a nice time difference there. So basically you call them at 12 o'clock or 11 p.m. and then you get someone on the phone, and then, okay, next day morning isn't working out, you have to wait another 24 hours. So that really, that's really a huge pain. And yeah, this is another thing I talked about in the beginning. So MVP is you want to get something out fast. And this is really something you see a lot, and you see it a lot with startups, because it's basically people trying to get it into your brain. You have to be on the market very, very fast. You have to be out fast, get out, break things, and all that stuff. But if your product, like if your MVP sucks, like it doesn't matter if you're out like first or whatever. If it's barely usable, there is no use. So try to no hacks should probably not be there. A few hacks is okay. Yeah, you should always limit the scope and of course not the quality. So try to do like many things right, small things, and if it's just if the scope is too big, then just try to make it smaller. Okay, so this is almost so about it for the technology side. So for the outlook for our magazine, we're going to launch. We have had a very successful launch in Germany. We want to be the #1 fashion platform in the world. So we also need to, I mean, Stylight is present in many, many countries. We want to have the magazine out in the US very soon. So for the outlook, we need, like I said, we're building right now user-friendly analytics for editors. Maybe at some point we will also open source this or something to our other competitors or something. Probably not. Then we have ranking and recommendations based on Elasticsearch. We're already building that. We're already working with that. We need to earn money at some point, so we are going to have ads. It's not actually that you just, you put an ad on your post and instant cash. There are ad servers, there is stuff you have to do first, there is certain infrastructure that needs to be in place. And like I said, we need the international launch, so this is the next big thing. Okay, so that was it. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks.
One more thing. Yeah, I did it. So we're actually hiring. So we're still a very small team. It still very much feels like a startup. So if you want to work here, it's amazing. Just come by. I will be here pretty much all day, all night, whatever. Just talk to me. Follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is not visible really, but follow me anyway. And also follow Anselm. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thanks. Are there questions, or you are urgent for the coffee?
Oh, come on. No questions?
In the back? There's one question, yeah. Do we have a mic here for the third row?
Did you ever regret the decision to go with WordPress?
Very good question. Yes and no. So, of course, when we first saw this drop in response time, right, we thought, shit, this doesn't work, we need something else. But we found out that, okay, we just need to proxy this, or we just need to put this data somewhere else, which is a bit more scalable, and we still have this nice UI. It's so important. Like, if you have a really good CMS, the editors can get 2x, 10x times more content out, right? And you don't have to support them every day. They know how to use it, and it's good. So after we had initially, at some point I was really struggling, like, okay, this was probably not the best decision, but right now we're super happy with it.
A happy wife is a happy life, so the editors loved it, and so that was our main goal. Yeah.
Have you developed a lot of own stuff for WordPress, like own plugins and?
Sorry again?
Have you developed a lot of own stuff for WordPress?
Yes.
Own plugins?
So right now we have about, first of all, we never touch any of the core code, so we only write plugins. So that's the only, because we wanna update, be able to update in the future. So every customization we do for WordPress is based on plugins. So we wrote about 5 or 6 different plugins, one for getting products inside, one for getting looks inside, one for featuring posts, adding like social and metadata, integrating GIFs, and so that was really important. Yeah, so we wrote a lot of plugins ourselves. Can you get a mic? So can you get a mic?
Did you profile what actually made the WordPress API slow?
Yes. Yep, we did, and so part of it is that the standard WordPress WordPress API basically the WordPress core functions, they do many database calls, right? So and adding custom fields. So we had to add custom fields for, is this post featured? Is this post sponsored? Do we need a sponsored logo? So the payload for the actual JSON that came out increased like every day. The bottleneck was the many round trips to the database we had to do. We tried first initially to like improve it, make it better performance, but it was just like we were talking like not milliseconds but really seconds. So it was already, we tried it, but we thought having this sort of another service that handles the API and handles the caching, we preferred that to min-maxing the WordPress code.
Do you have any thoughts to outsourcing or taking in content from third parties or from other people outside of your editorial team? And then how is that going to affect the magazine if you do?
So currently the magazine is only in-house content. We want to have really great content. So I know there are certain models like BuzzFeed where everybody can post, and Medium or whatever. There are models like that. Currently we want to really have great content and in-house content, first-class content. And we are also starting with videos. We're bringing that in-house. So currently we're doing everything in-house for the magazine. Yeah. Yes.
So in a few years, will the focus be bigger on magazine or on the clothes? Like
on
shop,
magazine or
like
clothes?
Yeah.
So I think the content and commerce world will grow further together. So actually you get inspired and can directly buy. So we not want to have it separate as two separate worlds, but we want to have it combined more than we have it right now. So currently you can actually see that there's a magazine part and there's a shopping part on our platform, but I think that will grow together. And everything you see on our magazine you can directly buy. And that would be our plan. And currently there's nobody out there that does it really good, and that's what we're aiming for on a global scale, of course. Yeah, there's one in the front row. And
just a question for you. Is the Pinterest buy button a threat to, or like competitor to Stylight?
the question was if or whether the Pinterest buy button is a threat for us. So we actually doing an Ask Me Anything in our company, and that was one question in the Ask Me Anything round we had, because of course that's a very interesting thing. So it's short-term not a threat for us, and we not tend to get too distracted by what our competitors, is not a direct competitor, but it's a competitor, what they do. It's definitely the right choice what they do, so it's a very smart move. Instagram also thinks about it or does it. So I think it's a logical step they take. I don't know how they will actually, or on how many products it will be available, but currently we don't see it as a huge threat, no. But very interesting, so very smart move. Yeah.
Since you had this huge growth of the magazine, how did you push this growth in terms of traffic?
The traffic. Yep. So we're the traffic is basically also from our website. The direct traffic we have, of course, but we also have great sources in Facebook. So we have a great Facebook community. Traffic comes from Facebook. We're experimenting, of course, with networks where we can get our traffic, but also the traffic is also in the apps. So we have two great apps where we have actually quite a lot of users, and they love the magazine and they read it in the apps. So traffic is also in the apps, not only mobile, but also in the apps. So there are a huge bunch of channels where we get our users or content from, users or traffic from, and yeah, but Facebook definitely is one of the more important ones for us. Yeah. Yes, another question. Sorry? Container? The question was whether we considered any other container technologies. Maybe you can...
Yeah, good question. So right now we are very happy. We've been using Docker since while it was still not in 1.0 release, so we've been using it for a long time. And we're really comfortable. We've built a lot of infrastructure around it. We do a lot. We know how to use. We use it in conjunction with CI. So we're really we have lots of experience with it. So right now we're really happy, and we don't have any really issues with it yet. So of course, if at some point something better comes around, then we're probably gonna switch.
Hi.
Hi.
I may have some strange questions because I have seen that Stylight.com is available for many different countries, but I didn't see any single of Asia countries in it, like China, like Japan, like Korea. My question is, if you guys said that you want to be the top one, you want to be the best in the world, have you got some plans to the Asian market?
Yes. So there are definitely more countries on the roadmap. So there will be first maybe something in the North American world, but also Asia is on the roadmap. China is a kind of different story, so maybe we'll postpone that. But there are definitely Asian countries that are very interesting for us. Basically, what we do is see the market size and the GDP of the countries, and then we go to the most interesting ones. Currently, we covered mostly Europe and the US. And we actually struggled a little bit in Russia with the political situation there. But yes, Asia is on the roadmap. I can't give any dates, but it's definitely interesting, yeah. Especially Japan, of course.
What I want to say is, maybe you guys don't know that Chinese people are very crash on function and clothes, and in China, we have much big company. Maybe you heard about the name, the Alibaba, and they make very successful business, and the most of them is about clothes. So I think maybe there is great opportunities to enter China and Chinese market, though.
Yes, definitely. Maybe we can have a quick talk later,
Sure.
and you give me some more insights, because we're maybe lacking some. So that would be a great topic, yeah. I actually already got the big sign, so we won't use more time than the others do. So I think the next thing on our schedule is a coffee break. So get out, enjoy the great sun outside, and have a coffee. And thank you all, and see you back in an hour.